Hello, my name's Olurotimi Osha. Today I want to talk about uh, the welfare programs and the fraud that uh, many state judges and state attorneys' offices commit. They commit fraud with regard to dispensing apparent welfare programs. Now, let me clarify. Many people think America is a welfare state. America is not a welfare state, right? America is ultra capitalist, right? So America is not doesn't have welfare programs like uh, most Western European nations do, right? So, what people could consider welfare is the temporary assistance for needy families program. That's what they designate as welfare, TANF. So, we don't have a federal welfare program. So, the funding for the temporary assistance for needy families, right, which people wrongfully designate as welfare, comes from the federal government. The federal government disburses this money to states, respective states, and each state, its counties, um, design a program, they tailor their program, and they administer it independently, right? So the thing is, when the federal government disburses money, if you don't spend it, if you don't use it up, right, because it's taxpayer money, right, then it's supposed to go back to the federal government. So when a state gets money, there's a budget, there's an estimate. When they get money, they don't want to send it back, so they want to spend it all. Now, when money is disbursed for quote unquote welfare, again, it's not welfare. We don't have a welfare state in America, and I'm going to explain all of this. These the the state has to, even though this, ostensibly the state is disbursing the money for individual citizens who need, the money, right, who need the assistance. In reality, the is paying for administrators of the program. It's paying medical doctors. It's paying psychiatrists, psychologists. It's paying judges, right? Who in the system, right? It's paying attorneys in the state system. It's paying state programs, right? So it's running the states. It's running the states. Um, Something else that exists is Medicaid, right? Medicaid is not it's not welfare, right? So Medicaid is sort of health insurance for people with disabilities who are not elderly. You've got to have a disability to receive Medicaid. Many people don't realize that. So in America, able-bodied people are expected to work and save and take control of their lives. The government is not meant to interfere with your life, right? So individuals are expected to work, earn a living, and take control of their health insurance, take control of their housing, take control of what they eat. So those people that need assistance from the government are deemed to be disabled. It's or the elderly. So the elderly, in terms of health insurance, get Medicare, right? The elderly get Medicare because they're old or they're retired, right? And they didn't save enough. So America doesn't have a welfare program, right? That's a misnomer. A lot of immigrants who come in, they assume people live on welfare, right? So those people who get this welfare are listed, and they're not working. They're listed, classified as being disabled, right? That they have a disability. Either they have a physical disability that prevents them from working, or they're mentally impaired. They have a mental illness, a severe mental illness that prevents them from working. And that's why the government is giving them money, right? For Medicaid to help them pay for their medical bills, right? For insurance, or they get the SNAP program. There's also the SNAP program, it's a supplemental nutrition assistance program, SNAP, right? So the SNAP is for households, right? And when they say households, they're referring to a single mother who has kids, young children. So those are the people that the government is helping, right? Temporary assistance for needy families, it's cash, financial assistance for low income families, households who have children. So it's typically for people who have children. Now, if it's a man, so they'll help and again, this is administered uniquely, right? Not uniformly by state. So I'm going to focus on the state of Maryland because it's Maryland that I had my encounter with. So I'm going to explain this and get into how judges in Maryland are using the criminal justice system to defraud Medicaid. For instance, Judge James Bonifant, who was on the board of is on the board of MedStar Hospital. As of the time I was wrongfully charged, right, with a fabricated crime that I didn't commit, hadn't gone to trials, nothing. Judge James Bonifant, his role is he finds a defendant, a criminal defendant, incompetent to stand trial falsely, right? Falsely. His immediate thing is he's going to ask you to go and do an evaluation, right? So you can go and see a doctor. Each time you go and see a psychiatrist or a psychologist, he's paid money. And if you go and see a psychologist or psychiatrist, you're coming to him, right? There's the iatrogenic effects. I've done videos discussing iatrogenic effects, right? So people who are well, there's a saying in the Bible, people who are well are in no need of a physician. So if you're going to see a physician, he assumes you're not well. And so he's going to tell you you're not well. And he's going to get paid for recommending medication. He's going to get paid from Medicaid, right? Because he's going to say, well, you do have a mental illness. So the state is making money. So that's one of the fraud that judges in Maryland like Judge James Bonifant and Judge B.B. Berry are perpetrating. And the people that are adversely impacted are black families, especially black men, right? Young black men, right? So when they file false charges against you, if you are a criminal defendant, it's likely, and they lock you up in jail, you can't go to work. So when they release you, right, when they release you, or the judge finds you incompetent to stand trial, and he orders that he wrongfully finds you incompetent to stand trial, then you're going to be sent to a hospital, right? And where they're going to say, well, because the judge is going to lie, like Judge James Bonifant, right? He lies, like in my case, he just fabricates something, says somebody who's healthy is not healthy. And then the government starts to pay a physician, right, for holding you in their hospital to find you competent to stand trial. So you see how the state of Maryland, Montgomery County, Maryland in particular, is committing fraud against American taxpayers. So Judge James Bonifant is involved in a conspiracy to defraud the American government through Medicaid. Judge B.B. Berry also does this, right? So let me continue with my discussion and explanation of the temporary assistance for needy families, right? So if you read, by the way, if you read the news, the newspapers, what's going on, the president, the State Department has just implemented a program to revoke the passports of American citizens who owe child support, right? They owe child support. They revoke their citizenship. They revoke their passports, not their citizenship. So they can't travel out of the nation. And you can be locked up in jail, right? You can be locked up in jail for not paying child support because the government garnishes the wages of somebody who has kids, right? And is separated from the baby mama or whatever. And for the baby mama, right, for the woman, single mother to be able to receive assistance, right, from the government, right, they have to provide the name, a paternity test, and provide the name of the father, right? So that's how they can get the father and lock him up in jail, or if they can't garnish his wages, right? Revoke his passport so he can't live the nation. Of course, I support that everybody who has a child or father is supposed to provide for their children. But if we're living in a system that is institutionally racist, structurally racist against black men, preventing them from working in things they're qualified for, and only wants to create a structure in which they're kind of slaves. They're used as slaves, or they're used as mud seals. I've done a video discussing what the mud seal is. Right? They're doing the lowliest jobs that that nobody else wants to do. Then it is an inherently unfair system. It's unfair. It's discriminatory, and like I said, judges in Maryland, like Judge James Bonifant, they're participating in this one constitutional rights violations against black men in particular, and also in a fraudulent scheme defrauding American taxpayers through Medicaid. Now, the other thing is there's something called supplemental security income, SSI. So again, that's cash payments to people who are disabled. They're elderly, they're blind, right? It's who are low income or little to no income. They can't work, right? So again, these programs, these funds are disbursed to states. The states organizes their program. So the state of Maryland, for instance, they don't give welfare. They don't provide welfare to men. A man who receives money, cash, Medicaid, he's deemed to be disabled, mentally disabled, right? He's so mentally impaired they can't work. So one of the ways that James Bonifant also perpetrates this fraud is, if you're charged criminally and he says, okay, go and do a competency evaluation, and you refuse, or he commits you, finds you incompetent to stand trial, and then he sends you to a mental health hospital to receive treatment, right? And you refuse to sign any documents, and the doctors agree that, okay, hey, no, you have no mental illness, and they won't treat you. In any event, the state, the hospital gets paid. The hospital gets paid because you're staying there, even though they're not treating you or giving you any medication, right? And the hospital says you have no mental illness, right? So the hospital gets paid. The judge, because the judge has signed a fraudulent document saying you lack capacity, right? He's saying maybe you're mentally impaired, you're disabled, you can't make decisions yourself. And the hospital perpetrates that scheme as well, says you lack capacity. Like Suburban Hospital does it. Montgomery County Police, when they removed me my home, where I paid rent, which was in my home, in my name, I had a federal government job, right, that I was receiving income. I also come from a wealthy family. My father was a bank CEO in Nigeria. We have homes, we have houses, so I don't have to be anybody's burden here in America. I had cash in my bank account. Judge James Bonifant and Judge Baby Berry, they have a hospital, Suburban Hospital. They have doctors who commit fraud, like Dr. Barton Leonard and Dr. Goru Ghaffari, using the assistance of the police, like Damarcus Coleman, who was practicing psychiatry medicine without a license. He says, well, this person has an undiagnosed mental illness, right? And so they sign off, they start their fraud, that this person lacks capacity, the ability to take care of themselves. So if you refuse to sign documents, right, a way they still have access to the cash is they write your name and then they lie. They designate you and say, no, you don't have capacity. So it's part of a Medicaid fraud that Montgomery County, Maryland is committing. So if President Donald Trump is looking for people who are committing Medicaid fraud, he should stop looking, specifically in Minnesota, but he should also focus on Maryland, especially Montgomery County. So Maryland is committing huge Medicaid fraud, and Judge James Bonifant, Judge B.B. Berry, the state attorney's office, John McCarthy, Montgomery County Police Department, officers like Damarcus Coleman, Suburban Hospital, MedStar Hospital, they're in a conspiracy. Conspiracy is a federal charge. It means that the crime they committed is huge, and they have a concerted action agreement. It doesn't have to be formal, but they're acting in concert, and they're in a conspiracy to defraud the American people, the taxpayers, in Medicaid fraud. In any event, I'll stop this video here and I'll expound on the fraudulent schemes of Judge James Bonifant to defraud the American government, the American people, of taxpayer money through Medicaid fraud, and by using false incompetence to stand trial orders and wrongfully designating defendants, those that have been wrongfully criminally charged, designating them people with capacity as lacking capacity, so that they could sign off for them and collect and fraudulently collect Medicaid money. My name is Olurotimi Osha, and I'll keep you posted. Thank you.